Welcome to Time for Success. I'm your host, Matt Barbey, and this is the show where we dig into really what does it take to be successful in both business and life. Because oftentimes in business, we kind of forget, we kind of lose our way. We kind of get so involved in our business, our profession, or the money and the finances and all that to forget that we're supposed to be doing it for life. Ever run into that, Cortez?
I do, man. One of the biggest challenges that I face, Matt, is that balancing act, family, work, business, all of those things, man. Still, it's a fun ride, but yeah, sometimes I get to see the steam coming out the side of my wife's head when I had my head down too long in front of this laptop, man. So, but yeah, we should be doing it for a purpose.
I hear you. Well, that's one of the things that we're going to be talking about today, purpose. That's hit that nail in the head there. And how purpose really factors into so much of business. But sometimes we just kind of jump into business, especially, in down economies. We'll see a lot of people, if things kind of go into a down economy with the ramifications of COVID-19 and all that, we'll see a lot of startup businesses and people just get into it. They get into the hustle and they kind of forget that there's a purpose behind it all. It's just beyond just paying the bills. Sometimes that's how we start. But anyway, so yes. Today we have a guest. His name is Cortez Springer. He's an author, and he's got his own podcast and shows and a couple of business endeavors that he's going to talk about as well. But I'll let him kind of get into all that. So Cortez, can you tell everybody a little bit more about what you do, who you are?
Sure. Matt, thanks first of all for having me on the show, man. It is an honor and a pleasure to be here talking about one of my favorite subjects on the planet, which is entrepreneurship, man. I absolutely love it. Since I was a kid, my mom, who was a minister here locally in the St. Louis area, had a word of prophecy spoken to her that I was going to be an entrepreneur, right? She couldn't even say the word back then, but she's been telling me since I was a kid that I'm supposed to be this entrepreneur. So I first went and looked up the word and got the correct pronunciation. And then I started to understand, okay, an entrepreneur is a business owner. Well, she raised us. She was heavily involved in the church. Therefore, she didn't work. So we kind of grew up on welfare right over here in a small suburb of St. Louis called Wellston. And while we grew up in an impoverished neighborhood, we were definitely went months without. We were not poor, but more so broke. And the main difference there being, the mindset. Poor is more of a permanent mindset. Broke is just a temporary situation. And I tell people all the time, I did often ask my mom, how temporary is this situation? Because it's looking more and more permanent. But it was those set of circumstances that led me down the path of, as a kid, we did things to make change, to play video games. We pumped gas, we raked leaves and shoveled snow and all of that kind of stuff. And really it just stayed with me that I could create my own income from my own efforts. So I stayed with that, and all of my adult life, I've always had some sort of business going on. Even when I was working a full-time job, I was doing something entrepreneurially all my life. And I finally found my niche, so to speak, about 5 or 6 years ago. I ran into a group teaching economic empowerment, and I thought, man, if there is a way that you can get paid for helping people get their finances in order, right? The one area that most people need some help in, I would love to do that. And lo and behold, that's kind of how I got on the current path that I'm on, and it has led to so many other blessings by following that passion. And that's what led you and I together. We, met at a workshop, and I was teaching some of this stuff. And that's what I'm really excited about, that I have found something that, gives me that sense of fulfillment, and it allows me to work in my gifts and also put food on the table at the same time.
And that's a great story. I love that your mom saw it from an early age that you were gonna be an entrepreneurant, however you want to pronounce it. Doesn't matter. It's the spirit behind it, right?
Yeah.
So now you've got a family, right? You're a family
I
man.
do, man. Yeah. Father of 5 sons. Youngest is 18. The oldest will be 29 this year. So COVID-19 has got 3 of them back at home with us.
Mm, mm,
Because schools shut down. So a couple of them had
yeah.
to come back home until we figure that whole thing out. But yes, married to my beautiful wife, Aletha. And then those 5 boys, man, keep me busy. And now more than ever, because it was just the 3 of us, my wife and my younger son, but the other 2 boys being home now, food bill has gone up, power bill has gone up. We're experiencing a lot of changes within the last 8 weeks or so, but it's all fun.
Yeah, I think a lot of people can identify with that right now.
Yeah.
My 14-year-old definitely did not plan for her school year and possibly going into the summer somewhat of spending so much time just hanging out with the family. But and I don't think my wife really planned on being a homeschool teacher. So
I know, right? Everybody has had to become a homeschool teacher. My son is senior year, so he's looking at possibly prom is already out the window, graduation is probably out the window as well. So we're just trying to figure out what's going to be the next course of action for him and how this whole thing is going to play out this next 4 weeks or so. But nevertheless, we all have to adjust to a new normal, right? Because I don't think it's ever going back to the way that it was. So we just are a little uncertain about what the new normal is going to be.
absolutely. Well, one thing that's probably going to be consistent, and as you say now more than ever, in importance in this kind of an area that you were talking about is that financial aspect of just taking care of the family. I think that, like I was saying earlier, we're going to see a lot of people who are kind of starting up businesses or at least side hustles while they're trying to figure out unemployment, or maybe their businesses cut their hours back. What do you think? What do you see? Do you see that happening?
Absolutely. And I think it could actually be a good thing because, as a believer in Christ, I know that God has given us all gifts and talents, right? And according to
Yeah.
scripture, our talents are to make room for us at the top. But what happens is a lot of times we can't readily identify how our talents will bring in revenue.
Mm,
Therefore, we're stuck on a job doing some things that we don't like because we can be trained to do pretty much anything. So we'll go to work and do some things that are away from our gifts, away from our talents, because it's going to bring in a paycheck every 2 weeks. All along, we're whispering to ourselves, man, we're going to get around to using this gift. And we look up 40, 50 years down the road, and that's all we've been doing was putting food on the table and never got around to that gift. So I like the idea of more and more people now, for lack of a better phrase, they're being forced to explore some of those areas and some of those options. And I think it's going to be good for a lot of people to really tap into their inner spirit and that inner gift and learn how to properly package and present that to the marketplace. And I think most people are going to find some level of success, whether they stick with it full time or they go back to a full-time job and keep that as an additional stream of income. I think it's going to be good all the way around.
Economic downs and ups and those cycles are just part of doing business. I've been teaching people for over a year now, specifically on building recession-resistant business, and part of the core message was it's part of the cycle.
Yeah.
And if you go, what goes up must come down. Now, of course, coronavirus and COVID-19, it was something that nobody really quite foresaw, at least what kind of impact it would really have. And we're still not sure long-term how it's going to be. Maybe things will miraculously bounce back up and everything's going to be good, but probably not. So I think that the biggest thing for people to embrace is that change happens. That's one of the constants in life. That's one thing that we can depend on, that change happens. And it's really about what we do with that change. Do we look for the opportunities in it, or do we let ourselves kind of become just victims? That, oh no, this happened to me, I got fired. I always saw myself in that job, or where's my money going to come from, rather than looking at it as maybe kind of a time for renewal, kind of like you were saying.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. This is definitely not the time to bury your head in the sand because there's opportunities abounding all around us. And I think even more so when this thing is all over. So I kind of help people to understand that positioning is important, right? If you think about a Jeff Bezos or an Eric Yuan of Zoom, right? Because of where they position themselves in the marketplace, Bezos is up 25 billion, right, in net worth. The founder of Zoom is up 2 billion in net worth because of positioning. And I think if we're not careful, we can miss an opportunity to position ourselves not only to thrive during this economic downturn, but also explode beyond when things come back open. And I like to say when we're allowed to go back outside and play, right? If you're in the proper position, I think you could really, really stand to transform your family's financial future forever. And we know that a lot of areas in our lives stem from our financial state and condition. So if you transform your life financially, then look at how many other things are transformed as a ripple effect of that. So I think we're in a prime position if you start to train yourself to see opportunity versus, taking on that victim mentality.
And I think sometimes when this happens, we kind of have to dig deep. We hear this kind of like, oh, you need to figure out your why, and think that a lot of people say, well, my why is to just make money, right? I got laid off from my job, so I gotta make some money. But entrepreneurism, is that's a word, right? Yeah, I think so.
I think that's the thing.
I think so. Yeah. Entrepreneurialism. I don't know. It's tough. Being a business owner is tough. You got to have those ups and downs. But it's kind of one of those things that if you don't kind of have some grounding in that, wouldn't you say that it can be tough to get up in the morning? It can be tough to take those no's. It can be tough to try to figure out a different way of doing business if something worked and then all of a sudden it stopped working. So how important would you say, in your experience and what you've seen working with other entrepreneurs, how important is finding that why and that passion behind what you do?
It's extremely, extremely important. I haven't had an alarm clock wake me up in a long, long time, right? Because I'm so on fire for what it is that I do. And I'm so excited about, the future and the light that I see at the end of the tunnel for myself, but also for all the people that I help along this way. But it is definitely tough. And I like to talk in terms of the thing that you're passionate about, but also the thing that you're just naturally good at, right? I think if you find either of those two things, and especially if it happens to be one and the same, you're naturally good and you're passionate about it, then I think it really lends itself to a lot of success. But there are some things that just naturally comes easy to a person, right? They may not be passionate about that thing, but at least it makes it easy for you to get up in the morning because you're not going to have a taskmaster-esque day because whatever it is that you've set out for the day, whether it's a business of your own or working with someone else, what you're doing comes naturally easy to you. But then there's some things that people are passionate about, and this is where I found myself in this area of technology, this area of digital business and things of that nature. I wasn't necessarily, that stuff didn't come easy to me, but I was so passionate about entrepreneurship. I was so passionate about making my own way that it made it very easy for me. And it gave me a great sense of patience as I banged my head against wall after wall after wall, trying to learn some of this stuff so that I can have an effective and efficient business. So I think where a skill set that comes naturally easy to you, that's something that you probably want to look to pursue and turn into some sort of business endeavor or side hustle. But also that thing that you're passionate about is you will go through the tough learning curve. You will ride the roller coaster where that passion lives. And I think we all have both of those things. Sometimes it's a little tougher to identify, but you got something that just naturally comes easy to you. You got something else that you're passionate about. And I believe that everybody has that passion for a reason, because that passion is designed like a homing beaker to lead us to our purpose. And when you find your purpose, the book I read says that when I'm in my purpose, I don't also have to figure out my provision, right? If I'm in my purpose, my provision is wrapped up in it as well. God doesn't say, hey, here's a purpose I laid out for you, and oh, by the way, you got to figure out how to feed yourself. Well, no, he puts the provision in the purpose, and I think that's why it's so important for people to kind of start following those passions, because it's going to lead you to that purpose.
Yeah, I think that's great. You know, and I think that your point about finding something that you're good at and kind of starting there is big, especially if you've never had a business before.
Yeah.
You know, if it's something that you can kind of fall back on and learn and use as kind of a place to build your business skills. And people forget that business has its own set of skills, as well as whatever the thing is that you're doing has its own set of skills.
Correct. Yes.
So if you don't really have those business muscles built up, you don't have those business skills, and that can be a great place to start. But I think that for some folks who are very passionate about a certain thing, they get so kind of focused on that thing where it's like, well, you know, sometimes it makes sense to do what you're good at, but then use that passion as something that you want to get to, right? Like, okay, I'm going to build a business. This is going to give me a good core, a good base to be able to do what I need to do to educate myself or build a team around me to be able to do the thing that I'm passionate about down the road.
Absolutely. Right? I totally agree. Because at the end of the day, you still have to fund this business, right? And if that comes from a particular set of skills that you have, then so be it, even if those skills take you down a road that you're not particularly passionate about. Because at the end of the day, when we're looking at business, you can build it to a point yourself to where you can hire people to manage and run it while you go pursue your full-time passion. So starting with a skill set and leveraging that is a great place to start.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to say that Elon Musk necessarily wasn't passionate about some of his early projects, but, you know, I will say that I think he's always had a passion for, you know, going, you know, space travel. And some of the earlier projects were kind of his ways to try to get to some of those bigger dreams. You know, early on, he might have just had a passion for space travel, but never really knew how that was going to happen. But, you know, he's you know, built a business around that and continued to try to develop that and had some amazing successes. But, you know, he started somewhere and started with what he was good at.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think I have the same kind of dynamic going on in my space. You know, I love entrepreneurship. I'm passionate about building a long-term legacy for my family and I. And I actually started in the network marketing direct sales industry, and that is building enough of a residual income that now it's funding some of these other dreams and passions that I have. So start with where you are good at, lay a foundation, and when it works, it can fund and fuel a lot of other things.
Yeah, I love that you brought up the direct sales and multi-level marketing and you know, a lot of people will just write that stuff off, you know, as a quote unquote a pyramid scheme or something like that, which first of all, it's not a pyramid scheme.
Right.
You know, unless you did buy into an actual pyramid scheme, but most multi-level marketing is not that. You know, they actually have products and services that people are buying. The problem that most people run into and why they get bad names is because people start them and they forget that they start them because it's more or less like kind of buying a franchise, because you're buying into the systems and the tools and support. So it's like buying a franchise, but there's such a lower barrier to entry. You don't have to plop down $10,000.
Right.
And so you get a lot of people who are really not quite mentally prepped to actually be a business owner. And so you get a lot of folks who participate, but then they're the kind of same people who kind of make excuses.
Yeah.
And even whenever maybe there's good reasons, you know, there's bad leadership, or, you know, maybe the company closed or something like that. But it's not, a lot of people forget that happens with any kind of business.
Right. It does. Yeah. And we are to blame, us direct sellers and network marketers as well, because we sometimes make it appear so easy. And that has a lot to do with it. all you got to do is tell a friend who tells a friend, right? When you
Right.
start with that kind of language and, you're drawing circles on the board, I am really cautiously optimistic about how I present, because I don't want people to think that it's simple, but not necessarily easy. And the reason being is because you got to deal with people, right?
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
are simple, but they're not necessarily easy.
Right. Right.
You got to deal with that all the time, man. So, yeah, we are to blame. Some of us really, love the compensation plan that we have. So when we're talking to a potential prospect, it's a lot of times it's not even about the product. It's more about, make a ton of money, and we're appealing to, that part of a person who can visualize and can dream. And I kind of almost do the reverse, and I kind of liken myself to the P90X of the network marketing industry. And, my coaches and mentors are really adamant about me changing my ways, because they're like, you're running people off. But really, if you can, just like if you under promise and over deliver, that's a good thing. Well, it's also good in reverse. So if I over promise how difficult it's going to be, and it turns out that it's a lot easier, then you love me to death for it, right? But if I tell you it's super easy and you find that it's a lot more difficult than I promised, then not only are you going to hate me and badmouth me, then you're going to go and hate and badmouth the entire industry as well. And that's not good for any of us. So we've got to be careful with how we present the opportunity as well, and help people understand that, business is hard. Business is a roller coaster. Entrepreneurship is a skill that can be learned, but you have to be willing to learn it.
Right. I work with traditional quote unquote businesses, and I've worked with multi-level marketing and direct sales, business owners, independent business owners. And so, I as a business coach and a consultant, I work with a variety of types of folks, and the principles are oftentimes the same, but I mean, they really are. It's just the systems and structures behind it, because similarly, I work with franchises. So I think, but it all boils down to, if you look at it as kind of an apprenticeship for business, and you say, okay, what does it really take to be successful in business? Now, I also say that if you've got a job that you hate, but it's paying the bills, and you want to eventually own your own business, you know what? Take that as your entrepreneur, as your apprenticeship to entrepreneurship as well. I mean, if you're not quite ready, or you look at what's going well, what you might change, you look at the leadership, systems, processes, and then I typically say too that, yeah, I mean, if you don't really have a big outstanding idea of what business you want to go into, then look at direct sales or multi-level marketing. That can be a great way to do it, especially if you don't have enough money to spend on a franchise or another business development idea, but you want to do something. So I love that. Now, there's also quite a few benefits to just starting a small business, whether you've got some sort of grand idea, or you start like a network marketing or a multi-level marketing business. Just having a home-based business, there's certain benefits to that, right?
Absolutely. I like to give my 3 main reasons that I think everybody should give entrepreneurship a shot, right?
Yeah.
Number one, I just think that it is time for us to show our children a different way. Not that entrepreneurship is better than higher education, and I'm not the guy who poo-poos on college and all that kind of stuff, but I think they should know that that's an option, right? So that's number one. Number two, there's a sense of fulfillment and pride that comes along with owning your own thing. I'll tell you, when I made my first dollar online from my own efforts, a program that I created from my own brain, I was hooked. I mean, there's nothing else like that feeling. So that sense of pride and ownership. I mean, you just think about it in another sense of, you go to a neighborhood where all the homes are rented, and you go to a neighborhood where all the homes are owned, and you see a stark difference between how the properties are kept and what goes on in the communities and things of that nature. Well, it's the same principle when you own your own business, even if it's not successful, just the aspiration and understanding that it can be someday, that's enough fuel to drive a person to continue to grow, to read, to go to seminars and learn and develop. So that pride of ownership is the second reason. And then the third reason is Uncle Sam. Uncle Sam favors business owners over non-business owners. And you don't have to shoot the messenger here, right? I didn't write the tax code. I just know that when you have a business, you get to play by a different set of rules. Most working class people will pay anywhere between 28 to 33% of their income in taxes, right? By adding a business to your full-time job, you can lower that to anywhere from 18 to 23% because of all of the tax deductions that you're going to get. And what's really cool is, while there's nothing wrong with the traditional business, most traditional businesses have to go out and create other expenses to operate their business. Well, guess what? I'm in my home office / studio right now. This is an expense I already had. I didn't have to create it. I was paying for this space anyway. It just had a snotty-nosed kid in here, so I kicked him out, and he moved into the room next door. But because I have this home, this business where my primary functions of business happen in my home, I get to write off a portion of my rent. The electricity that runs this office, my internet, my cell phone, the miles I put on my vehicle, I mean, it just goes on and on. I think Sandy Botkins said there's about 475 tax deductions for self-employed and small-based businesses, and he's the guy that used to train IRS auditors to go and audit businesses, but he's now on our side and he's telling people about all of these expenses or regular bills that can be turned into expenses if you operate a small home-based business. And most people don't realize it doesn't take an LLC or an incorporation. Your Social Security number actually doubles as an EIN if you started to run some sort of enterprise. Now, you're coaching people into structure and that kind of stuff to make sure that there are certain levels of protection. But man, starting a home-based business will save the average person anywhere from $12,000 to $15,000 per year in taxes. And when you look at it, the reason that a lot of people are in debt is because they're missing that $12,000 to $15,000 a year that's coming out of their paycheck. Well, if we were able to keep that, we wouldn't have to go and borrow the money for some of our expenses or float money on credit cards. So we teach people that the tax savings can be recouped, use that to build an emergency fund, get out of debt, and start investing, and that will transform your life forever.
Absolutely. Well, you know, the tax codes were effectively heavily influenced by business owners. Mm-hmm. And it's the truth, you know, money does talk. And so they're there really for all of us to take advantage of. And why would you just ignore it when, you know, you could be putting more money in the bank? Yeah. And again, I think a lot of it sometimes is just kind of that fear of the unknown. A lot of it could be, again, just not sure what business I want to start, which is fine. And so they're kind of stuck. But then a lot of people are stuck too between that rock and a hard place of, well, man, I don't know about a traditional business. I'm not sure I want to start. But then, you know, they hear, you know, bad things about like network marketing and MLM. And you know, today's episode isn't necessarily to just talk about like network marketing and MLM or anything like that. It's not necessarily what Cortez and I were necessarily talking about, but I really do want to try to open people's eyes, especially with this episode. And that's, I think your goal today as well, right, Cortez? I mean, at least just start opening your eyes and saying, you know what, you know, maybe there's some benefits that I've been letting other people's opinions get in the way of my dreams. Right? Yeah,
I think so. And you think about the network marketing piece, and I know we don't want to beat this drum, but it solves some of the biggest issues that people have going into business. I don't have a product. I don't have a distribution chain. I don't know much about putting together marketing material. And if I did this on my own, I would have no leverage, right?
Right.
So it kind of solves all of those things. Now, there's still a learning curve for business because it is still a business.
Mm-hmm.
Two of the biggest reasons people don't succeed in that industry is they don't know how to network and they
Mm-hmm.
don't know how to market.
Right.
And that's the
Right.
name of the industry, right?
Well, and
And they,
yeah, that's part of the reason it's got such a bad name, right? Because they don't know how to market. Hey, I got this thing. You want to buy it? Oh,
yeah,
it's great. Come and buy it.
yeah. So if anybody is serious, and this is what we primarily teach, is that the tax advantages alone will, in most cases, pay for the business cost. So technically, you're in business on Uncle Sam's dime. But take that free business that you now have and learn business, right?
Yeah.
Outside of what's going to be taught through your sponsors and your coaches in that industry, but learn general business overall. And I think most people will be fine. But
Right.
also think about the simplicity in the thing that you already know, the gift or talent that you already possess. I tell people that everybody knows at least one thing better than most, right? And because you know that one thing better than most, you position yourself in a way that people will either pay you to do that one thing for them.
Mm-hmm.
They will, because you know it so well, either if they don't pay you to do it for them, they will pay you to teach them how to do it. If they don't pay you to teach them how to do it, maybe they need some hand holding, so they'll pay you to do it with them, right? Or if they are a self-starter and you know it so well, maybe they will take your recommendation and buy products that you recommend, in which case you can be an affiliate of and earn a commission on by recommending the product. So just starting with your gift, talent, expertise, or even an experience that you've had and you've overcome. I've talked to a good buddy earlier who has overcome cancer, right? That was an experience that he went through. Now he could take his story on how he was able to overcome that, and he could write a blog, for instance. He could do video blogging and talk about his experience. He could talk about the things the way he changed his diet and some of the foods that he began to eat, the transition from a meat eater to a vegan. Well,
Mm-hmm.
that's an experience that he openly shares, and that can actually bring in revenue. That could be the home-based business. It could turn into a book. It could turn into a documentary or a docu-series. It could turn into other forms of digital products and services. So I don't want people to get stuck on that I have to join a MLM as my entry level into business, but you've got a gift, talent, special ability, or experience that you've gone through that you could use as the foundation of creating a platform for speaking engagements, teaching, and other forms of digital products, courses, and things of that nature. And like MLM, very low startup costs to get started and involved. The biggest cost is your time and learning how to do some of that stuff.
Yeah. I think that's great. Like my wife, she for years did cake design and floral artwork. The little vintage baking company. I'm gonna cheap plug,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
she kind of decided that she wanted to get out of the stress of the cake design for other people, and she wanted to get online and do more blogging and more education, and focus kind of in that area. And I think what you're talking about is even just taking what taking your life experiences and using that just to kind of educate other people,
Yeah.
so that maybe they're a little bit better off. I mean, I think that's there's a certain beauty in that, and a lot of people are in similar situations in life who are just kind of looking for somebody else who went through whatever it was and might be able to offer some guidance. I think that's
Absolutely.
good.
I had a guy, he's a virtual mentor of mine. I've never met him in person, but I follow him, his podcast, his blog, and some other things. And I was watching him train a small group of women at one time, and he said something that changed my life. And that's what led me to writing my second book on the subject. He said, there's more in what you know than what you do. And that really resonated with me because I have always saw myself, because of my poor economic background coming up, I didn't have the money for the tools to fix my bike, right? And I don't know if you've ever tried to fix a bike with a butter knife as your flathead and a steak knife as your Phillip head, right? And a pair of pliers, right? There's a lot of things that don't come loose on a bike with a pair of pliers, right? But because I didn't have the money for the tools, I developed this resourcefulness, right? And over the years, it has always been that way. When I needed to lay floors in my house, I couldn't afford the guy $2,000 price tag to lay the floor. So I went and bought the floors and I learned how to lay them myself. So I picked up a skill. And when he said there's more in what you know than what you do, I started thinking about that. And I was like, man, what does he mean by that? And then he went on to break it down. He said, Cortez, if you, for instance, your wife, baking cakes, there's only so many cakes that she can bake in a 24-hour span. I know she's Superwoman, man. I know, because all women are. I mean, they're all just super women, man. I know it. But at the end of the day, there's still only so many cakes that she can bake in a 24-hour span.
Right.
However, if she baked her favorite cake and put a camera up in front of her and went step by step on how she does it, how she gets that cake to come out the way that she does, and it's moist, it's fluffy, it's got the right amount of sweetness, the texture is there, and she taught that, and she made that available in a course for, say, $2.99, learn how to bake the best cake ever, right? How many of those can she sell in a 24-hour period versus the amount of cake she can actually bake in a 24-hour period, right?
I mean, at the most, like 8 or 9 billion, but you know.
Yeah, yeah, at the most, right? And then some people will buy it twice, right? That's where I want to get people thinking along those lines, right? Because some people will readily say, Matt, I don't have a gift.
Yeah.
I don't have a talent. I'm not good at anything. Well, first, stop lying to yourself, because you are, right? One of the reasons we don't know what we're good at is because it comes so easy to us, right? So we don't see any value in it because it comes so easy. It's like, oh, I can do that with my hands tied. And everybody around you is saying, hey, that's amazing. How did you do that?
Yeah.
Right? Well, that's an indication that that's a skill set that you should have. So I want people to start thinking more broader about what entrepreneurship looks like in the 21st century. It is not go rent a building and rent some equipment and try to produce something, right? We have an unlimited amount of intellectual capital that is basically just going to the grave every year because people are not understanding the age that we're living in. And this technology allows you to do business and think about business in a completely different way.
Yeah, I mean, it is the information age, you know, and so you know, people are trying to learn new ways as quickly as possible, and people just love to learn. I mean, that's why I see, you know, great things happening with, like, you know, YouTube and all that. But I mean, there's so many ways of starting a business that's so low cost. Just the keyboard warriors. There's network marketing. I mean, there are some lower cost franchises, and you know, there's even just I mean, Alibaba and those kind of things where you can do, you know, drop shipping and you know, Amazon FBA, fulfilled by Amazon. So you don't even necessarily have to keep an inventory at your home. Amazon will keep your inventory. So you just have it shipped to Amazon, and Amazon takes care of it, and they'll you know, you just build a funnel online, and people can order from it. And you know, not everybody's necessarily going to get rich, but you know, what if you made an extra $100 a month?
Yeah, and that's what we want people to see. I watched Gary Vaynerchuk do his garage selling, right? He goes on, spends a Saturday morning and goes to about 10 different garage sales. And he's just involved in arbitrage, right?
Right.
I watched him get a box full of action figures. Now, one of the action figures just happened to be one of my favorite childhood cartoons growing up. It was a Thundercat action figure. I don't know if you know anything about the Thundercats, man.
Oh yeah.
But he found a Thundercat action figure. Now, he may have paid $1 for this entire box of action figures. He pulled out the Thundercat action figure. He was able to take a snapshot of it, did a quick search to see what it was selling for. Do you know that one action figure out of a box of dozens sold for $37? Now, he got the whole box for $2.
Yeah.
And one of the action figures is worth $37. Now, what people will say is, I don't have the time to go to garage sales. I don't know how to set up an eBay account and all of that kind of stuff. Well, that's where you learn, people. So there's a lot of ways that you could, flip $1. He also showed, hey, he went to a Macy's department store.
Yeah. Got
almost everything off the clearance rack and went back and reposted it at its regular price. And people bought it at the regular price. Well, come on. It's a suggested retail price for a reason, but for whatever reason in this particular store, they've marked it down.
Right.
That doesn't mean it lost its overall value.
Right.
It just lost its value. They're trying to get rid of it from that store. So there's a lot of things like that, man, that people could be doing. And if you think about, in 2008, all of the financial publications said people would have saved their homes from foreclosure if they had just an extra $300 to $500 per month.
That's amazing.
So we're talking about, maybe doing some of this garage selling arbitrage. Shoot, most people got some stuff in their house that they could sell right now.
Right.
They haven't seen or touched in I don't know how long, right? That stuff, to your point, $100 a week. That's $400 per month. What would that do if you threw that at your credit card debts? If you threw that at your student loans and you didn't do anything else but your little $100 a week that you make from your side hustle, you strictly focus that on debt elimination. Where could you be in a year or two, right?
Yeah.
Those are the things that we want people to see about entrepreneurship. It's not about building a business that's going to retire you. Could it over time? Yes. But what could an extra $300, $400, $500 a month do for you, especially during this current economic state? It could be a life changer for a lot of people. We know a lot of jobs aren't coming back online, not to any fault of any person, individual, but the company was not able to survive this. So the whole company shut down. What are those people going to do, right? So we're just saying, open your minds to opportunity, because opportunity is all around us.
Well, and as we're kind of closing up here, I want to bring it back in full circle, because you hit upon that point again of where sometimes people make excuses. They say, oh, I don't have time, to go to the garage sales on the weekend. I don't have time for this, or it sounds like a lot of work, or I don't know how to do this. That's why it goes back to that why. That's why you have to understand, what am I doing this for? Yeah, money for some people is very motivational. Oh, I got to have more money. That's great. If you're that person and you find money motivating, awesome, go for it. But a lot of people, that's not as motivating. But just think about it. If you had $100 a month for maybe a year, or maybe 2 years even, let's say for 2 years, could you take your family on a vacation that you've never gone on before?
Sure. Absolutely.
Maybe it takes you 2 years to do it, but could you have done it without it? Maybe finally be able to get a down payment on a good car, or maybe you get it for $300 or $400 or $500 a month for a couple years, and you're able to put a great down payment on a house. Yeah. What is it that you've always wanted, or maybe you've always wanted to buy a house for your mom? Okay, let's hit you with a little bit more heart here. Maybe yourself, you're fine, but maybe you always wanted to get something nice for your mom or your dad. Or your wife's always, or your husband's always talked about wanting to go on vacation somewhere. Just find those whys, those opportunities that maybe you've kind of dismissed. I don't have enough money for that. Stop making excuses. You have the opportunity to take control of your life. And entrepreneurship is really, that's what entrepreneurship is about. I tell people entrepreneurship is just about options.
Yep. Yeah.
It's about getting control of what you can control and having options in life.
Yeah. For me, Matt, it's legacy. I
Yeah.
can't help but look at things like when I drive down Lindbergh and I see there's a Firestone shop right there on Lindbergh, right? And if I get down to 270 and I head south on 270, I'm going to ride past a Marriott hotel. I'm going to ride past a Sheraton, right? And I'm going to ride past several McDonald's, and those are people's names,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's what really drives me is, wait a minute, somebody named Firestone years and years and years and years ago, through free enterprise and entrepreneurship, built something that we know that name today. Ford, someone Firestone partnered with, right? As they were coming up that's somebody's name, Matt. Why can't my name 100 years from now still be providing a quality product or service, and people will just, I mean, it kills me, the brands that, like when we say Speedo, right? That's a brand of a swimsuit, but it's synonymous with swimsuit, right? When we say Firestone, we just think that is just all tires. No, that's just one brand of tire, right? You could do stuff like that with entrepreneurship and have your name mean something. And it's not just, the vanity of it, but all of those names also have huge nonprofit organizations attached to them that they do wonderful things with in the community and around the community. But it started from entrepreneurship and the free enterprise system. So take advantage of it, man. We are here. No need to complain about it, because complaining ain't gonna change it. So you might as well, I tell people all the time, I stop complaining about the game and start learning how to play.
Right. Now, I love that, legacy and all that. Now, the only challenge for you and me, I've got to compete with Barbie dolls, and you've got to compete with Jerry Springer. So I don't know.
Yes.
I mean,
yes,
we gotta get our hustle on for that.
Yeah, man. I've got some things to overcome. I used to work in a call center, Matt, and I can't tell you, if I had a dime every time somebody said that, hey, this is Fernando Springer, welcome to so-and-so. Springer, like in Jerry Springer? Yes, but no relation. If I had a dime for every time I heard that over the years working in that call center, brother, I would be all right.
Right. No, I hear you, man. With the last name Barbie, it's a similar battle.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again, Cortez, for being on the show. And if anybody wants to get a hold of you and dig in a little bit deeper or hear more about the financial freedom that you help people achieve with what you do personally, how do they get a hold of you?
I would actually want to bless everybody in your audience with a copy of this book, Monetize My Life: 4 Incredibly Simple Ways to Profit from Your Gifts, Talents, and Passions. And all they have to do is go to monetizemylifenow.com. monetizemylifenow.com. If they cover the shipping, the book is free. All of my contact information is there as well. How to get a hold of me on my social media handles. All of that stuff is right there on that site, man. I'm just super stoked that you allowed me to come and share my experience, my passion for entrepreneurship, and hopefully some light bulbs came on for some of your listeners that, hey, entrepreneurship is more than a building and a marquee. I mean, really, it's just the tax ID number in the folder, people, and everything else is all imagination. So you can get that, then I think you could be on your way to becoming a successful entrepreneur in the 21st century.
Love it. Well, thanks, Cortez. Appreciate it. And if you or somebody that you love would love to build a business that gives them more options in life or a greater legacy, I'm here to help. That's what I do. Help people create a business that gives them the life that they dream of. So my number is 314-441-5423. Again, this is Matt Barbey with Time for Success. And thanks, Cortez, for being on the show.
Thank you, Matt.